Justin Jefferson might just be the best wide receiver in the NFL right now, but back in 2020, 4 other wide receivers were selected ahead of him in the NFL draft. We're about to find out what happened to those players and why teams were hesitant to draft Jefferson. During the pre-draft process, Justin was usually ranked as the 4th or 5th best wide receiver in the class. Jefferson was a great route runner, but lacked speed, and that concerned scouts. They didn't think he would be able to rely on his route running to get open in the pros like he did in college. They also questioned whether he would be able to consistently win matchups on the outside versus NFL corners. Some thought he would only be able to play in the slot. But with the 22nd overall pick, the Minnesota Vikings decided to draft Justin Jefferson. As a rookie, the wideout shattered records and expectations. He finished his first pro season with 1,400 receiving yards, which broke the NFL's record for the most receiving yards for a rookie. Then in his second pro season, he just got even better. In 2021, he had the second most receiving yards in the league with 1,610 touchdowns. But guess what? His numbers were even crazier in 2022. In his third pro season, he took home the NFL's Offensive Player of the Year award after racking up 1,800 receiving yards and averaging over 100 yards per game. In each of his first 5 NFL seasons, Justin has had at least 1,000 receiving yards. So now, let's see who the receivers drafted ahead of him were and which general managers are wishing they could have a redo on their pick. The first wide receiver off the board in the 2020 draft was Henry Ruggs, who was selected 12th overall by the Las Vegas Raiders. Coming out of college, Ruggs was known for his blazing speed. He had the fastest 40 time at the combine that year, running it in just 4.27 seconds. However, Ruggs' first pro season was pretty disappointing. In the 13 games he played, he only had 26 catches for 462 yards and 2 touchdowns. His second pro season got off to a better start. Throughout just the first 7 games, he already had a career-high 469 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns. He was on pace to break the 1,000-yard mark by the end of the season. But then, on November 2nd, Ruggs made a life-altering, reckless decision. After drinking, he decided to get behind the wheel. He was driving 156 miles per hour, then crashed into a car driven by a 23-year-old woman. The woman's car went up in flames, and she and her dog, who was also in the vehicle, passed away. Ruggs was then taken into custody and released by the Raiders. Fast forward to 2023, Ruggs pleaded guilty as part of a plea agreement. He was sentenced to 3 to 10 years in a Nevada state prison and is up for parole in 2026. The second wide receiver selected in the 2020 draft was Jeudy, who the Broncos took 15th overall. Also guys, has this ever happened to you? You sit down on the couch to watch some football and all of a sudden 6 hours have passed and you're starving. Well, that takes me to the sponsor of today's video, DoorDash. I've been in that situation numerous times, but DoorDash saved the day. Instead of trying to figure out what meal to prepare, I got food delivered right to my door with DoorDash. With DoorDash, you can have almost anything from your local neighborhood delivered. Food, flowers, alcohol, retail items, and more straight to your door. Sometimes I edit these videos on my channel for like 12 hours a day. So I'm not thinking about what I'm gonna cook for dinner those days. DoorDash is so clutch in those situations. I just go on the app and get my dinner delivered right to my door. And oh yeah, if there were any errands I needed to run that day to get things for around the house and I forgot, I could have those retail items delivered right to my door with DoorDash too. DoorDash is your door to more. Download the DoorDash app now to get almost anything delivered. And using code SPORTS2024, get 50% off up to $10 on your first order of $15 or more. During the pre-draft process, Jeudy was touted by some as the best receiver in this class. As a rookie, Jeudy was the Broncos' leading receiver with 856 yards and 3 touchdowns. But his second pro season got off to a rough start. After suffering a high ankle sprain in the first game of the year, he was sidelined till week 8. However, when he did return to the field, he just didn't produce. In the 10 games he played in 2021, he only had 467 yards and no touchdowns. Jeudy was able to bounce back the following year though. During the 2022 season, he had a career-high 67 catches for a career-high 972 yards and a career-high 6 touchdowns. After having just over 750 receiving yards in 2023, the Broncos traded the wide receiver to the Browns for a 5th and 6th round pick. At this point, Jeudy had not lived up to his pre-draft projection. He hadn't become a true number 1 wide receiver. But in his first season as a Brown, he went on to have the best year of his career. Despite catching passes from 3 different quarterbacks, Jeudy put together his first 1,000-yard season. He had the best game of his career versus his former team in Week 13, hauling in 9 catches for 235 yards and a score. 2 picks later, with the 17th overall selection, the Cowboys drafted CeeDee Lamb. Dallas already had a number 1 wide receiver in Amari Cooper, who was coming off an 1,100-yard season. But Jerry Jones decided to draft who he felt was the best player on the board, and it worked out. His first season in the league, Lamb had 74 catches for 935 yards and 6 total touchdowns. He improved upon those numbers the following season, hauling in 79 catches for 1,102 yards and 6 touchdowns, which earned him his first Pro Bowl appearance. That offseason, the Cowboys traded away Amari Cooper, which meant CeeDee was set to be the team's true number 1 wideout. After the trade, some thought his play would decline, since opposing teams would now be able to double him. But the opposite actually happened. 2022, his first season without Amari, actually went on to be the best of his career so far. CeeDee had 107 receptions for over 1,300 yards and 9 scores. His numbers just got even better in 2023. That season, he had the most receptions in the league with 135, 1,749 receiving yards, and 14 total touchdowns, which means he was averaging over 100 receiving yards per game. After this outstanding season, he was named a first-team All-Pro and made the Pro Bowl for the 3rd straight year. The 2024 season was a rough one for the Cowboys, but CeeDee Lamb was a bright spot. Despite playing the majority of his games with backup quarterback Cooper Rush, Lamb racked up over 1,000 receiving yards for the 4th consecutive year. CeeDee has cemented himself as one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. He's no doubt top 5, and I personally think he's in the top 3. With the 21st pick, the Eagles drafted Jalen Reagor. I just gotta say, I feel bad for Jalen Reagor, because his legacy has become being the guy that was selected 1 pick before Justin Jefferson. For starters, he never should have been drafted that high. It was a massive reach by the Eagles. I mean, the Vikings front office was literally laughing at Philly for making that pick. It seems the Eagles decided to go with Reagor because they needed a deep threat on offense, so GM Howie Roseman decided to draft based on fit rather than straight up who's a better prospect. In his first pro game, Reagor actually showed some potential, hauling in a catch for 55 yards. But unfortunately, that first game turned out to be one of the best he would have. After missing 5 games with an injury, the wideout finished his rookie year with just 396 yards and 1 touchdown. But it only got worse from there. The Eagles showed they didn't have much faith in him when they traded up to draft another wide receiver, Devontae Smith, in the first round the very next year. In Week 12 of the 2021 season, the Eagles were driving down the field late in the 4th quarter, down 6. On that drive, Reagor dropped 1 pass, then soon after dropped what would have been the game-winning touchdown. Then, in the wildcard round of the playoffs, he muffed 2 punts. One ended up being recovered by the opposing team. After that game, the Eagles had had enough, and ironically traded Reagor to the Vikings, where he would become teammates with Justin Jefferson. In his first season with the Vikings, he had just 8 catches for 104 yards and a touchdown. Prior to the start of the 2023 season, he was waived, and the Patriots then signed him. In September of 2024, Reagor was on New England's practice squad, and posted this meme to his Instagram story. Some people thought he posted it to say that he was too good for the Patriots practice squad, and this might have actually been the case, because just hours after he posted it, he was cut by the team. After that, the Chargers signed him to their practice squad. He's been on LA's active roster since November and has had 100 receiving yards in the 8 games he's played. Then finally, with the 22nd overall pick, the Minnesota Vikings selected Justin Jefferson, and the rest is history.